particular workshop is to make things easy. To give you a framework that once you understand the parameters, the outliers, the extremes, so to speak, that you can look at any interaction between one or more human beings and extrapolate exactly what's probably going on. Does that make sense? Right? I'm not going to teach you every little nook and cranny, every little micro expression. First of all, if you're coming in here looking for information on micro expressions, no. For the average human being, micro expressions, how many people know what the hell I mean when I say a micro expression? Okay. If you haven't, you should read up all of Paul Ekman's work. A lot of his material that I'm working from, I pull from his work. I'm a very big fan of his. Micro expressions, by and large, are far too subtle for the average untrained person to catch consciously. But there are much larger behavioral processes that, if we look, we can look, and you have the perfect laboratory right now to apply what we learned in our last training, which is the speed attraction 3 magic questions process. Right? Matter of fact, I have guys in here who were telling me last night when they were walking the strip doing walk-up hypnosis and all these other things, they were using 3 magic questions protocol, and they had mobs of people following them up and down the street. Right? Because the 3 magic questions protocol will generate that kind of comfort very, very quickly. Comfort and discomfort are 2 of the big things that we need to look at when we start to work with body language. Okay? You know you have 3 brains, right? And it's not the one you're thinking of, men, although it's connected, right? Let me put my little sigil up here. Every time people see this, they go, "What is that?" I say, "That's for me to know and you to find out." Right? I guess it's officially start time, right? Okay. Welcome to People Reading for Fun and Profit, aka Body Language Secrets. My name is David Snyder, and today we're going to do a deep dive into the wonderful world of nonverbal influence. My intention is, again, once to show you a framework with which you can organize everything you see and understand about body language, okay, and other types of non-linguistic phenomena. Tonality we would consider also nonverbal, right? Tonality, aside from the actual physical body you're walking around in, is the single biggest hypnotic operator that you have, okay? Your tonality will change everything. The fastest way to change your tonality congruently, that's a big word. When we get into the lie detection segment on Sunday, you're going to hear that a lot, because that is how you catch liars. You have to look almost exclusively for the incongruity, the things that don't line up. So on one side, I'm teaching you how to be completely congruent no matter what you're doing. On the other side, I'm teaching you how to spot people who aren't. Okay? Everything that human beings do, every behavior they generate, every belief that they have, comes down to one thing. Feelings. Feelings. Nothing more than... Seriously, body feelings though. All of our behaviors, all of our beliefs are in response to something we either want more of or a feeling that we want a whole lot less of. All of your clients who come in are there because of a feeling they don't like, right? And there's a feeling they want more of. All of our behaviors are geared this way. At the reptilian level, or the paleocortex level, which is the oldest part of you, it runs the meat. Your paleocortex thinks in primal drives, okay? As far as it's concerned, and if I lapse into jargon, smack me, because I'm trying to keep this. By the way, the single biggest way to keep people with you is to use smaller words. Right? Never mind, I won't even mention his name. But your reptile brain sorts for what is familiar. Okay? It's pleasure-driven. And it's looking for friends. Now, if it's familiar, it's good. If it's pleasurable, it's good. If it's friendly, it's good. We move towards those things. This is true at every level of human neurology, every level of human experience. Okay? Conversely, of course, if it's unfamiliar, it's bad, right? If it's painful, unless you're in San Francisco or some weird fetish community, it's bad, right? If it's unfriendly, it's bad. Human beings always, pretty much without exception, in spite of what NLP training may have taught you, human beings almost always move away from pain and towards pleasure. The distinction is which do they do first, right? If you have, I need two human beings for this. Come on up here, human being. Come on up here, human being. And it's great. It's a man and a woman, so we have the perfect mating context.
I'm not into dudes.
You're not into mating? We can fix that too. Oh, well, that's all right then. All right. So what I'm going to share with you is, again, this is the world according to David. If what I say conflicts or it does not resonate with something that you've accepted as true, tough shit. No, if it works, use it. Right? How many people have never been in a workshop with me? Just by raising your hands. Okay, very cool. Let me just give you my disclaimer really, really quick. If politically incorrect metaphors, colorful language, profanity, or the word boobies offends you, there's the fucking door. Right? I really believe in just cutting through the BS and to give you real-world practical things that you can learn right now and go out and start using it. Right? And you'll be able to start using this today, right now. The moment you walk out of this room, you'll be able to look at any group of people and know who's the prize, who's the seeker, who's the rapport leader, who's following who. And once you know how to do that, you can control it. You can influence it. Okay? Massive, massive skill to have. I'll also show you some body language tweaks, things that you can do with your body that will automatically generate trust in other people. I'll also show you how to flirt. Oddly enough. Right? I won't give you my pedigree because they've only given me 50 minutes. So let's start by establishing that the reptile brain, which is controlling the meat suit, that's my slang term. I watch way too much Supernatural, right? Controls everything that these people do, consciously and unconsciously. All right. If you want to reference embodied cognition studies or object relations theory, you'll find the analogs for what I'm talking about. But here's how it works. What's your name, sir?
Rick.
Rick, please back to me here. Move over here a little bit. Jules, back here. Okay. What you see here is the outliers of the rapport continuum. We're talking about connection. We're talking about rapport. We're talking about away from. These are two people who have absolutely no connection to one another moving away. That is the outlier for the rapport continuum. Follow me? That's our parameter. This is what we don't want. Things are starting to evolve. Let's bring Rick up. Rick, nicely. We'll bring Rick up nicely. We'll bring Jules up loving. Together. Almost pee-pee touching. There you go. This is what we call the other end of the rapport spectrum, where 1 + 1 = 3. All right? Thank you. Back up a little bit. Don't get so intimate in my place, damn it. This is where all social interactions fall. Every form of interaction between one person and another, or a group, within a group, are going to fall within that spectrum. They're either going to be more oriented towards sameness or more oriented towards away from or difference. Everything you see can be extrapolated from those two extremes. Does that make sense? Now, the two big outliers, Rick, can we back up just a little bit here again? The two big outliers in this process are distance and orientation. When they orient ventral line to ventral line, they're more in rapport. When they orient away from, they're less in rapport. The common dating dynamic looks something like this. If Jules is sitting at the bar, she's like this. Does this look familiar? Now, based on what we just learned, who has more power? Why? Who's more invested in this relationship? Remember, attention, which is often equivalent to direction of focus, is the currency of relationships. The reptile brain, even regardless of how erudite and logical you think you are, is always running the show. It just sublimates its primal drives with rationales and emotions. Okay? So, in this dynamic, if Rick is making an approach, she has something he wants, but it could just as easily be this, which we almost never see. Well, actually, the men almost never see. 60% of all approaches are initiated by women. Didn't know that, did you? But you see, women are much more cagey than we are, men. We're stupid. Okay? The women are going, right? Why? Because a woman's social radar, a woman's socialization and her sensory acuity is far more finely tuned to subtle social and nonverbal dynamics. When you get a group of women together, and one guy, right? Every woman knows in the group when the conversation's over and they're gone. The guy's like, I'm fucking alone, right? This is also, and again, I'm going to actually, Kelly Woods asked me to sit in on a panel tomorrow that she's holding on some of the things going on here at the convention in terms of people being approached when it wasn't wanted and things like that. So I'm going to give my input on some of those things. One of the gaps in female socialization, by the way, is the inability to extract themselves from an interaction that's going south without going from nice girl to bitch mode. There's no in between. All right? See, guys, we're terrified of the approach. It's not so much with women. What's going on with women is they're afraid. I said, my sex change is coming in, right? What they're afraid of, guys, is that you're not going to get the message when the process isn't going where you want it to go. And they don't have those subtler areas between all the signals that a woman would recognize versus what a man would recognize. Because guys, we're completely different in terms of what we sort for. All right? A woman can literally go up to a man and go, and a man would go, wonder what she meant by that. Right? Women, not so much. Right? But the problem is that both of you are projecting your internal map of the world onto the opposite gender, and when they don't match, you make them wrong. You see, the signs that women are sending out are obvious to women, but not to men. The signs that men send out are way obvious to women, but they're too blatant. They're not subtle enough to not be threatening. You follow me? Guys, we beat it over the head, we take it home, and we eat it. Sometimes not in that order. Right? Right. Remember, painful, unfriendly, bad. Reptile moves away. Right? If what you're presenting doesn't fit the map of the person receiving, that's the response that you get. That is the unconscious response that you get. Does that make sense? So now, in the relationship dynamic we've got, Jules is the prize, Rick is the seeker. Ideally, if we have time, we can go through the 7 stages of mating if you want, but it's every social dynamic you're going to work with, whether it's a negotiation, whether it's a mediation, a client, hypnotist interaction is going to fall in this paradigm. How many of us, when we work with our clients, are here? Mm-hmm. Right? A better angle to be is here. Because when we align, we align. If we align somatically, we align emotionally. When we align emotionally, we align cognitively. If you ever watch some of the best people in the world, like best guy I can think of right now in terms of doing this is a guy named Apollo Robbins. He actually performs here in Las Vegas. He's a pickpocket. He's a professional. He gets up on stage and picks people's pockets. Great job, right? But Apollo did a show called Brain Games, and he talked about how people's attention can be easily diverted, allowing you to move into their personal space. So if I'm approaching Jules and I look down and I walk in, I can walk right into her personal space. And it's actually quite natural, right? Because once we make eye contact, her attention will follow where I go and I can slip in. I don't come in directly. I'm on an approach vector, I look down, I slip around that point of contact, and now I'm in, right? When you're approaching people on the street for your street hypnosis, don't approach them straight on. Come at them from a side vector. This is peripheral influence. And as you do, align yourself ventrally with where they're going. The neurology always seeks alliance. It happens on every level of human experience. Understand? Okay? So this is what I mean when I say this is the outlier. If we understand that this is where all body language positioning comes in, we can look at a group dynamic and extrapolate based on what we know is true. You don't need to know every single gesture. And this is true for every human being on the planet. You can be in New Guinea, you can be in Africa, you can be in Italy, you can be in Alaska, it won't matter, right? Social distances can change. Orientations don't. Orientations don't, okay? It's hardwired into us. So thank you, Rick. Thank you, Jules. Give them a big round of applause. What you see in the continuum is that as people move towards connection, they move towards pleasure. They move towards pleasure. Now, I talked about ventral orientation. That's the frontal line. The more oriented towards each other they are, the more connected they are, the more trusting they are. Okay? It'll almost never start there, though. Does that make sense? Okay? When you approach, and again, this carries into anything, any kind of cold call, any kind of cold walk-up, whether you're doing networking. A lot of you guys are in BNI and all these other networking groups. You do speaking, you talk to groups. A lot of you like to do the street hypnosis, the walk-ups where you start talking to people. Remember, the approach vectors that you take and the orientation that you take on will change how people process you in their world. Your physiological proxemic position around their body will change their psychological positioning. It's embodied cognition, neuroscience. Can't not happen. If you want people to like you more, if they're right hand dominant, stand on their right side. They'll like you more. Okay? When we start looking at interpreting body language, anybody here not have a face? Raise your hands if you don't have a face. Okay. Raise your hands if you have a face. All right, very cool. Here's the thing we need to understand. We are hardwired for facial recognition. We're hardwired to look people in the eyes and study the face. We'll cover this more in lie detection. That is the last place we look for information as to what's going on. So if the face, which is the place we pay the most attention to, is in fact the least useful at this point, what do you think would be the most useful? Feet. It's the thing we pay attention to the least. It's the thing TSA agents are taught to screen for potential terrorists. The orientation of your feet will tell you how invested in that interaction the person is. So, can I use you, Ron? So, again, if you can, I don't know if you guys can see my feet or not, but if I'm talking to Ron, now we're ventrally oriented, so our feet are kind of almost pointing the same way, right? So we're talking. If we were in that love relationship, little Barry White playing, right, this would happen. You see, as the proximity shifts, ventral orientation will shift too. This is connection, this is absolute trust. That's why somebody approaching from out here in this way is very threatening. But you'll literally see in most social and bonding interactions a subtle shift and a shift, a shift and a shift. And you'll just see them come there. I had a student who ran a wine bar, and I was teaching her this. And she goes, you know what? You were totally right. I would watch men and women come in for their dates. And at the beginning of the night, they're sitting on opposite sides of the table. By the end of the night, their wine glasses are right next to each other. Okay, there's a whole process of two becoming one that's being played out non-verbally. We call it the mating dance. There's a free video about it on YouTube. But all of your social interactions fall within that. The first thing I want to know when I look at somebody's feet, especially if I'm looking at a group, where are all the feet pointing? Where are all the feet pointing? Because the feet will almost always orient towards the rapport leader of the group. If you want to influence a group, I'm not saying that just because I teach jury selection. I don't actually teach jury selection. I teach persuasion and influence to people who do jury selection. It's a difference. But what I want to know is who are their feet pointing at? Who are their feet pointing at? Because more often than not, that's the rapport leader of the group. And if you want to control or influence the dynamics of the group, you must access the neurology of the rapport leader. You can't go in and just try to work your way into the group. You've got to match the energy of the group. You've got to look at who the rapport leader is. And if you can effectively synchronize your neurology with theirs, their authority becomes yours in a non-threatening way, as long as you don't do anything stupid, right? The other thing we want to look at is who's half in and who's half out. So if I'm all in, my feet are this way, right? Now, in the pickup and seduction world, they have this thing known as a false time constraint. A false time constraint is telling somebody I only got a few minutes. Takes the pressure off that they're going to be stuck in an interaction. By the way, it doesn't have to be a seduction. It can be a business exchange, especially at a networking function. If you want to make sure you have a practically unlimited amount of somebody's time, you say, hey, I only got a few minutes. Look at my feet. Stand up and look. One foot is pointed towards him. Where's the other foot? So I'm half in, half out, right? Now, in normally untrained people, this is what, when you see this, that person's only barely listening to you. They're giving you they're giving you a face, but they're not giving you the system. They're ready to beat feet. No pun intended, right? So when you see this, either let them go or find something to grab them and make them want to invest in that relationship, right? If you see this,
they're gone.
Now you see, I didn't have to teach you that, did I? Because you know what the parameters are and you can extrapolate. Don't believe me, go observe, right? When you talk to another human being, expand your peripheral vision, look at where their feet are. If you can match or mirror the angle of their feet, you'll fall into rapport faster. Because that's the part they're paying the least amount of attention to. It's also the part where you're connected to the earth. So all kinds of really cool vibrational stuff happens, which is not the parameter of this class, right? So thank you, Ron. Give me a round of applause. There's a lot of cool stuff about the legs that we need to understand, and unfortunately I don't have a big old stool, so I have to kind of mimic this as best. Is this useful, by the way? Yes. Okay. So the first thing we want to look at is their feet and their legs. The legs, remember, at the end of the day, the reptile runs towards things that make it feel good, runs away from the things that make it feel bad, right? You can take it to the bank. Even if you think you're a towards person, if you're way too much NLP training, right, like me, right, amongst the ranks of the chronically overtrained, oh, I'm a towards person, I don't respond to away from. Trust me, everyone in this room responds to away from. Okay? There's this thing known as the Zygarnik effect. You guys know anything about this? It's more commonly used in marketing. What it means is if points of pain and points of pleasure have the same value, you will experience more pain from losing the dollar in your pocket than the pleasure you will get from finding one on the ground. You will fight harder to keep what you have and experience more pain if you lose it than you will for getting something new. So you will, and it's evolutionary. You are weighted this way. You are programmed this way. It's reptilian, which means it's preconscious. And when you affect somebody at the reptilian level, all the other levels of the neurology align. It changes the perceptual filters that you bring to bear on the situation. You guys know what I mean when I say perceptual filter? Okay? An easier way to understand that is the order and priority that your nervous system gives to information in your environment. In Paul's book, Dr. Ekman's book, Emotions Revealed, he talks about a behavior called the emotional refractory period. The emotional refractory period is a behavior that your neurology engages in every time you have an emotional state shift. You never realize you've had a shift in emotion until you're in it. You don't get like a 2-minute warning from like, danger, Will Robinson, danger, you're about to get pissed off. It doesn't work that way, okay? What does happen though is that you go through this state change and the information in the environment that you sort for, pay attention to, changes too. It changes to anything that reignites or reinstalls or keeps the state you're in going. Anybody here ever buy a car? Okay. I went through this whole hellacious, David's going to buy a minivan phase. It was really traumatic for my self-image, right? For obvious reasons. Great vehicle. And TJ actually helped me find it. He's wandering around back there. But, anybody here ever buy a new car? Okay, anybody have new for you? right? Or maybe when you were growing up, you played that game Slug Bug or Punch Buggy, right? You guys know this is where you get to brutalize your best friend for no reason every time you see a Volkswagen Beetle, right? Did you ever notice something interesting after you played that game for about 20, 30 minutes? Even after you see him everywhere, right? You go and you cut this great deal on this van or car in exactly the color you want, exactly the make and model, almost the price you wanted. You're driving it home, radio blasting, you look in the mirror, look out the side mirror, and every motherfucker on the planet bought the same car on the same day, right? What's up with that? Emotional refractory period. You become highly sensitized to the information in your environment that correlates to the state you're currently in. Every human being on the planet works this way. That's why when I started at the beginning of this and combining that with what you've learned in speed attraction, everything human beings do is in response to a feeling in their body. It's either a feeling they want more of or a feeling they want less of. The emotional refractory period makes that happen. It makes that happen because it tweaks what you pay attention to first. Right? If there's 10 things that make you happy and 2 things that'll piss you off, all units of information being equal, and you're in a pissed off mood, guess what you'll pay attention to first? That's how it works. Now in my advanced trainings where we talk about covert influence, we talk about conversation hypnosis, we actually teach you how to utilize that. How to literally tap into somebody's neurology, generate a feeling state in them so that they're already predisposed to parsing whatever comes out of your mouth in the most preferable way possible. It's really cool. We obviously don't have time to do it here, but it was in my curriculum. Like I said, this is from a 2-day workshop that I teach, so I'm going to go as fast as I can and try and point out the things that you can start using most often. So remember, orientation ventrally tells you how invested they are in the dynamic. Right? Proximity tells you how much trust they have. Okay? The angle of the feet, half in, half out, FTD man, right? Okay. The other thing that happens with the feet is you engage in these behaviors. I hope everybody can see me. The feet are the first to run away. So a lot of times when you see people who are going into stress, and that could be positive stress, or it can be negative stress. One of the things you'll see most often is this little bouncy leg thing that annoys the hell out of us. Right? This is a sign of stress. Could be pleasurable stress, could be negative stress. All body language cues, with very few exceptions, especially in the realms of attraction and lie detection. I am trained in kinesic interview and interrogation. I actually was going to be a behavioral profiler. Before I just looked at how much they made versus how much, and the stress level versus, and chose healthcare, right? So this is something that we need to look at. When this leg is going, there's some level of stress that they're trying to vent in the system. So that's the first thing we want to notice, right? Second thing is what will happen many times is if somebody is interested, is fascinated. When you go, how many people have ever seen a movie? All right, very cool. Now, you ever watch people who are like really into their movie? They look like they're delivering a baby, right? Ventral orientation leans, body leans towards, neutral, away from. If it's familiar, it's good. If it's pleasurable, it's good. If it's friendly, it's good. We lean towards. Always. Rarely will you see somebody who is having a really good time. This is a fuck you pose, by the way. When you see people like, ever get to see people get the tough guys or the kids who are too cool for school get called down to the principal's office? Maybe you've been a principal or a teacher, right? They sit in the chair and the first thing they do is, this is the body language equivalent of, this is what it means. Now I'm flouting your authority. You can't ruffle me. Right? However, in terms of social status and social dynamics, people who tend to be have more status tend to take up more vertical and horizontal space. If you're not feeling confident, but you would like to have more social status and have that feeling in your body, take up more space and hold it. Your body within 2 minutes will start to go into that state. Can't not happen. Okay? The fastest way to change any body feeling that you have, any psycho-emotional state that you have, is to change your posture and your breathing. Let's try that. So everybody stand up. Again, and how many people deal with people who are like have chronic anxieties or things like that? All right. How many people have ever tried to do self-hypnosis immediately after getting the shit scared out of them or something like that? Nobody will admit to it, right? Okay. Nobody's done that stupid shit like me? Okay. All right, first things first. I want you to remember a time in your life when you felt like an absolute total winner. You saw something you wanted. You made a decision right then and there that you were going to get it. You made a plan. You put the plan into operation, and you nailed it. Home run. I want you to see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt in that moment of victory. And I want you to just step into it. I just want you to be there in that moment. Let it come flooding back. Now, for the next part, I want you to keep this exact posture, this exact breathing pattern, and consciously try to feel bad. What? You mean our willpower isn't the be-all, end-all we thought it was? No. All right, so now I want you to turn around and look at Zach, because I don't want you looking at me when you go through this next part. All right? Zach has a strong self-image, he can take it. I want you to do something. I want you to do something a little bit different now. I want you to remember a time in your life when you saw something you wanted, you went for it, but it didn't work out. And I want you to remember, I want you to let that feeling come back. I want you to go into that posture, go into that breathing pattern. We're not going to stay there too long, but I want to show you how this can make you emotionally bulletproof. Okay? What I want you to go into that feeling as far as you can in the time you have. Go into the body posture, go into the feelings. Now, while holding that posture, while holding that breathing rate, try to feel good. Ew, that's depressing. All right, now, use all your willpower. Summon up every ounce of willpower that you have. Hold on to that negative state, but move your body back to the positive winner state and notice what happens. What'd you notice? You mean you can't fucking follow instructions? I told you to hold on to that shit. That's good. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Good. Have a seat. The posture and the breathing will make you bulletproof in any situation. Environment, context can overwhelm your critical factor. The unexpected can overwhelm your critical factor. The moment your critical faculty, sorry Mike, the moment your critical faculty goes out, your willpower's done. Your willpower is a finite resource. But the most powerful hypnotic operator you have is your body. The energy behind your persuasion message is generated from your body. If the feelings in your body are right, your posture will be right. If your posture is right, your breathing is right. If your breathing is right, your tonality is right. When those things are right, it's very hard to do something wrong. The problem is we're taught as hypnotic operators to do things in reverse order. To consciously monitor what we say, consciously monitor our breathing, consciously monitor their breathing, consciously monitor the states they're in and control our own state. We're trying to do it from the top down. Well, your critical faculty can't process that level of information. That's why we can catch people lying. Right? You guys and some of you are, some aren't. Who was in my last training? Okay. You guys remember I talked about OODA loops? OODA loops? This is a term from the Korean War. And if you're going to be a hypnotic operator, which is what I call anybody who utilizes hypnosis anywhere, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. This comes from Korean airplane battling. When people in the Air Force, they would have dogfights and people would fight, and they discovered that the more complex the maneuvers, the more information the pilots had to process in combat, the slower their reaction speed was. So they developed maneuvers that they could create by rote that were very hard for the other pilots to follow, and they took advantage of this OODA loop. You have this same process going on. This is why many times when we try to use conversational hypnosis techniques and other things that we learn in NLP class or whatever, we try to go out into the field and use it and we choke. Because we're using the wrong part of our brain and we're starting in the wrong place. It's too much information to monitor. There's a simpler way. Change your body state. If 93%, and that's not an exact figure, but if 93% of all communication is nonverbal, which means it's not linguistically based, If I got all of that right and all the words wrong, the words being the other 7%, if it were a test, a 100-question test, what would my score be? 93%. That's an A in most people's world, right? If I got all the body language wrong, but I got all the words right, what's that score? That's my point, ladies and gentlemen. What you do with your body, what you teach your clients to do with their body will dramatically change your treatment outcomes. It'll dramatically change the results you produce in the field with the same technique. Every technique that you already know, you apply this material to it, it will work at least 31% better, probably even more. Okay? Don't believe me. Go play. Okay? How are we doing on time? About 20 minutes. I got to wow your asses. Okay. Yes, sir?
What was the third thing in the observe, orient?
Observe, orient, decide, act. In other words, something gets our attention. We observe it. We focus on it, which is the orient. We have to decide what to do about it, which is the harder process. That's where most of the time is taken up. And then I have to actually do the action. The more information I have to track, the slower that process takes, which means my windows of opportunity in terms of my response time and taking advantage of things drops dramatically the more things I have to pay attention to, right? But there's a primary language, a principal language that every neurology has preloaded in it. It's the language you had with your mother in the womb. It's a kinetic language, it's a kinesthetic language. Every part of your neurology is trying to connect with every other part of your neurology. That's in Melissa's book, if you've ever read Keeping the Brain in Mind. I believe that's a direct quote. Every part of your neurology is trying to connect with every other part. That is a prime directive of all organic material. Anything that grows is seeking to become more than it is. It's seeking to connect. This is why we band together in groups. This is why all the cells of your body are working together. This is why we learn and our brains evolve over time. There's a primal fundamental directive. And when we feel connection, when we feel understood, when we feel accepted, this happens. To the degree that it's threatened, this happens. This is what speed attraction was about. But it's happening on a somatic level too. And we can read it. We can read it. Okay? I'm going to give you guys some cool stuff to play with. There's a couple of things that I teach at workshops for both genders on flirting and attraction. I also teach, obviously, personal injury attorneys how to do these things. I teach hypnosis and hypnotherapy. I teach NLP, all context. My clinic specialty is organic illness that has as its root physiological repressed emotion. So I don't get a lot of smoke cessation clients. I don't get a lot of weight loss clients, believe it or not. I get OCDs, I get post-traumatic stress, not from me personally, but Parkinson's, I mean a lot of chronic cancer, a lot of terminal cancer patients come through. These are the things I deal with on a daily basis. Okay, I get what I call the cool stuff, right? And I need technique that doesn't rely on the person's belief system. I need technique that will get through and to the issues and get them to follow my instructions, because none of the good work that you do happens until the client does what you say. Your job, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what your feelings about it are, your job is not belief. Your job is compliance. None of the good you have to give can happen until the client does what you tell them. It's just the way it is. So every part of your repertoire, every tool in your toolbox has to be geared towards maximizing and facilitating compliance in an ethical way, right? But at the end of the day, if the client didn't do what you say, you weren't successful. Actually, you were, they weren't, right? This will gain tremendous, tremendous compliance voluntarily. You have 4 big categories of hypnotic operator that we play with: authority, attractivity, affinity, and acquiescence. I call it the 4 horsemen of covert hypnosis, right? And they are categories of influence. If you want to have more authority in a person's world, authority is the king hypnotic operator. When you want to have more authority, you need social status. Social status, even though we think of it, even though it has the term social in it, social status is a reptilian response. It activates the reptile brain. Because to the reptile brain, acceptance or rejection by the group is analogous to survival or extinction. That's why we feel pain when we aren't accepted or kicked out of a group. Societies protect their high status members. When you demonstrate more status in a person's world, they become more suggestible, even if they don't want to be. Okay? Is that useful? One of the fastest ways to gain authority in a person's world is to know things about them they couldn't possibly have known unless they told you. We do that through observation and calibration. Another way is this. Their body postures. What will happen over time as you play with this is think of it like two Bluetooth syncing up. Okay, how many people have ever heard of a system called HeartMath.org? Okay, HeartMath.org has done some tremendous research on the human heart and its internal nervous system. They discovered that if they took a dog and his boy and sent them out into the yard to play, within 15 minutes their heartbeats could synchronize. Okay? Nothing I'm telling... Okay, I'll shut up now. Nothing I'm telling you is mumbo jumbo. It's all science. You have a proprioceptive nervous system that monitors preconsciously at least 6 different types of information, one of which is electromagnetic fields. Okay? It also monitors kinesthesia, mechanoreception, nociception, interoception. These are feelings in your body and out where your body is in time and space. Right? When I reach into my pocket and I feel something in my pocket, it's the part of me that knows what I'm touching without me having to look, can identify it by its shape or size. This is what you're learning to develop. This is where really powerful influence can come in. When you can start to approximate a person's posture, orientation, and direction, your heartbeats will start to synchronize. When your heartbeats start to synchronize, the meat suits start to synchronize, and all of your cortexes will too. And you will gain information. A lot of you already had this experience in trance with people, but you can do it anywhere. But there's a kinesthetic sensation that manifests in the body when that change happens. Once you recognize it, if you generate a certain feeling state in your body, their mirror neurons will mirror it. They will go there too. The difference will be, because it's happening preconsciously outside of their conscious awareness, they'll think it's them. They won't realize you've primed them to do that. Their perceptual filters will shift. We talked about that, emotional refractory period. And they will become highly predisposed to parsing whatever words come out of your mouth in the most appropriate way possible for them to act on the feelings in their body. That's where we start. Okay? But we got to understand what we're looking at. We got to know if we're going to control a group, we're going to influence a group, we got to know who the rapport leaders are. We got to know when we walk up to somebody based on their body orientation, how hot or cold are we in their world, right? And again, I don't have 10 minutes. All right. I just want to download it into you. So, TJ, do we have those business cards? Can we hand those out before people go? Usually I try to prepare materials beforehand, but there was so much I wanted to share with you. Has this been useful? Yeah. All right. I didn't get to through all the feet stuff that I wanted to. But I'm going to give you 2 more things that I want you to go out and play with. And you can use this in your street hypnosis. You can use this when you're presenting to groups. It's called the open heart trust trigger. Certain physiologies are hardwired into every human being. Certain physiologies are hardwired into every human being. Can I use you? Is it okay to be on camera? Awesome, come on up here. So this is a really cool body language. Just face forward this way, okay? So first things first, you guys know that flirting has a posture, right? You guys know that flirting has a posture?
No.
Oh, I'll tell you next week. No, I'm going to give you that. So if somebody is honest and upright, I just gave it to you. If people are honest and trustworthy and loyal, when we describe them, how do we describe them? Stand-up guy, upright, straight shooter. You notice the symmetry? When we say someone is evil or nasty, right? They're crooked, they're bent, they're twisted. What if somebody's naughty? Look what happened. All I did was take the posture, and you got funny. I didn't say a word, except naughty, right? Now, I just said naughty again. It didn't have the same effect. Is that hypnosis? You bet your ass. If I want somebody to get playful, if I want somebody to be flirtatious, if I want somebody to view me as somebody to have fun with, which is going to be more effective, this or this? You see, you can't help yourself. The contrast. Look at
magnet.
That's right, right? When you, and again, I don't think Playboy does this anymore. They don't actually put women in their videos. They just put articles and stuff. But they actually, if you ever look at the girly pictures or those adult-oriented things, you never see a model on Swimsuit Illustrated going. They're always asymmetrical. Asymmetry is flirtation body language. It triggers an entirely different set of feelings and perceptual filters in the body, which means anything that comes out of my mouth is going to be processed differently than if I'm standing like this or like this. Right? Yes?
So, dishonest and naughty are like the same?
No. It's half and half. Right? This is upright. You think Quasimodo. Right? You look at the old television shows of the early 20s and 30s and 40s, right? You look at a lot of the old comic books where the villain's good looking. Say no.
No, Mr. Despicable.
Right? All the villains were evil. They were bent. They were literally caricatures of what they were inside. Now we've embraced the concept of the anti-hero more than we have the villain. So now even our villains are hot because there's a formula that Hollywood follows and programs you with. That's another class. Okay? I'm a human influence technician. That's what I do. So in terms of human beings and understanding how all these things come together, that's what I do. Professionally, I'm a hypnotist and a neurolinguistic programmer. I teach people how to do these things. If you want to be more fun, you want to be more playful, you want to put somebody else in that state, get asymmetrical. Yeah. Right? And it puts you in that state. You ever notice? You can't assume that physiology without feeling that way. Right? So if I get rapport with Dina, right? And we're just oriented, right? And I go, hey. All I did was shift, right? She's blushing, right?
Can you use this to lighten the mood?
Yes, if you're congruent.
I mean, not only for courtship, but
anything.
Okay.
Yeah, if you change your physiology and your breathing, this is the big takeaway. You can change everything. Right? I referenced a video. Don't go away. I'm not done with you yet. I'm not done with you yet.
Oh, yeah.
Right? All right. I referenced a video, 5 minutes, I know. I referenced a video called Power Poses by Amy Cuddy. If you haven't watched that TED Talk, it's free. Watch it. There is so much gold in there. She validates a lot of the things we've been teaching for 10 or 15 years. But it's a Power Poses by Amy Cuddy. The last technique I'm going to leave you with, a couple of things. They're going to hand out some, anybody get the red, there's some red notebook pads back there. They're my gift to you. There's also a card in there that's a VIP gift pass to any product or training that I hold in 2017. It's a 50% off coupon. That's my gift to you for just coming out and sitting through my bullshit. Right? For those of you who are interested, if you want to go deep dive into the world according to David, we have a full-blown training at the end of the convention. It's called Secrets of Personality Transformation. See Stephanie, and it's 3 whole days of me just drilling you on how to change personalities, get rid of stuff. We'll show you how to spin things. We'll show you some of the latest developments we've done clinically in terms of removing rapid trauma. It's all in the form of self-directed trance work, so you'll be learning how to do this in terms of hypnotherapy, but on the last day, you'll transition to doing all of the processes that you've learned up to that point on yourself, by yourself, in under 7 minutes. It's deep, deep alchemical stuff. I don't have a lot of time to go into the details. I want to get this last piece out to you. If you want more stuff, talk to Stephanie and tell her you want more time and bigger rooms with more chairs. Right? The last body technique I want to give you is called the open heart trust trigger. This is it's kind of weird when I explain it, but the feeling that you generate in people and the response that you get is well worth it. If you go up and you talk to somebody, right? I'm just talking to Dina like this, right? And we're having a nice conversation. But if I imagine that over my chest is a clear plexiglass screen that she can view, she could actually look into it and see my heart if she wanted to. If I stand that way, like I'm trying to show her my heart, what do you feel now?
It just feels open.
I generate instant trust, instant openness in the person. It's just a shift from this to this. See what happened? Look at her, her whole physiology shifted. Right? Don't believe me, go play with it. Right? Normally in these kind of things, I don't get the time to do the hands-on that I normally do. We do 3 times as much hands-on as any other trainer in the industry with this stuff. So if you really want to get it, track me down or track Zach down. How many people have been to one of my trainings before? Talk to these people. Talk to these people. They can tell you much more than I can. Give Dina a big round of applause. I want to thank you all for coming. I'll be doing a little panel with Kelly Woods on some stuff tomorrow at 1:30. I'm just a guest like everybody else, but I'll be fielding questions. If you had a good time, let everybody know. Spread the word. We've got one last workshop for the convention Sunday. It's a 3-hour workshop on lie detection called Lie to Me If You Dare. We're going to go deeper into this stuff. And if you had a good time, tell everybody. If you didn't have a good time, shut your fucking mouth. All right. We'll see you. Thank you all so much for coming out.